All right, let's talk about sugar. Specifically, we're going to peel back the layers on fructose, a sugar that seems simple on the surface, but has a really complex and honestly a pretty misunderstood story inside our bodies. So, first things first, let's bust a huge myth. You hear it all the time, right? High fructose corn syrup is the ultimate villain. But here's the thing. Look at the numbers. Regular old table sugar is exactly 50% fructose, and high fructose corn syrup, it's right there in the exact same ballpark. So this tells us something really important. The problem isn't just about where the sugar comes from. And that leads us to the big question, doesn't it? If they're basically the same in terms of fructose, then what is the real issue here? Well, the answer isn't in the sugar itself, but in how our body is forced to deal with it, especially when it gets hit with way too much at once. And that brings us to our first section. It turns out sugar has another face, and we're about to see how the amount of fructose we consume completely changes the metabolic game. Think about eating an apple. The fructose in there comes in a pretty small dose, and it's all nicely packaged with fiber and water. Your small intestine is built for this. It's like, I got this. It calmly metabolizes most of that fructose before it even gets a chance to go anywhere else in your body. No problem at all. The trouble really starts when we just totally overwhelm that system. I'm talking about a huge, concentrated blast of fructose from something like a soda. It's just way too much, way too fast for the small intestine to handle. So all that excess fructose just rushes right past it and gets dumped directly at the liver's doorstep. And that is where our story takes a very, very different turn. Which brings us right here, the metabolic detour. Because once that fructose hits the liver, it doesn't follow the normal rules. It takes its own private, unregulated superhighway. Now, this comparison is absolutely crucial. When your liver gets glucose, it's a very careful, controlled process. There are checkpoints, there are safeguards. It's all about matching energy output to what your body actually needs. Fructose? It's the complete opposite. It basically gets to skip a critical checkpoint, puts the pedal to the metal, and there are absolutely no brakes. So meet the main character in this whole drama, a special enzyme called Fructokinase C, or KHK-C for short. Think of it as the bouncer at the door for fructose in the liver. And it has two really important traits. It is incredibly good at grabbing fructose, and, this is the most important part, it has no off switch. It just keeps going and going, processing fructose as fast as it comes in, whether the cell needs it or not. And that out-of-control, high-speed processing, it leads directly to an emergency situation inside your liver cells. And we're not talking about a slow burn here. This is an immediate, full-blown energy crisis. Yeah, one source puts it perfectly. It says the enzyme's activity induces transient ATP depletion in the cell. Now, ATP is basically the energy currency, the battery pack for our cells. So to put it simply, this whole process instantly starts draining the liver cell's power supply. Let's just visualize that for a second. A happy, healthy liver cell is like a fully charged phone battery, right? It's at 100%, running on that ATP energy, ready to do all of its important jobs. But then, that flood of fructose arrives. That unregulated enzyme, fructokinase, just goes into total overdrive. For every single molecule of fructose it processes, it has to spend 1 unit of ATP, and it's doing this at a lightning-fast pace. It's like an engine just revving out of control, burning through fuel for no reason. And the immediate result is a crash. The cell's energy supply just plummets. This sudden power outage puts the liver cell under incredible stress and kicks off a whole cascade of desperate emergency survival signals. So, what does a cell do when it's in a panic and its energy is draining? Well, its frantic attempt to recover leads us right into our next section, from sweetness to fat. Okay, so let's walk through this chain reaction. Step 1, the energy crisis hits. Step 2, the cell scrambles to make more energy, and in the process, it creates a ton of leftover byproducts. And what do those byproducts do? Well, they fire up 2 other pathways. One is de Novo Lipogenesis, which is just a fancy way of saying making brand new fat from scratch, and the other is the production of a waste product called uric acid. And this isn't just some abstract science experiment. The real-world consequences are pretty serious. That newly created fat starts building up inside the liver itself, leading to what's now called Metabolic Dysfunction-Associated Fatty Liver Disease, or MAFLD. And at the same time, those rising uric acid levels are directly tied to problems you've probably heard of, like gout and high blood pressure. But wait, it doesn't stop at the liver. The effects of this whole process start to ripple outwards, affecting the entire body. Which brings us to our final section, the body's chain reaction. And this part is just wild. This process can actually trick your brain. See, when fructose gets metabolized in the brain's energy sensor, the hypothalamus, it causes that exact same drop in ATP, that same energy crisis. But unlike glucose, which tells your brain, hey, we're full, this energy drop from fructose can actually trigger hunger signals. It basically tells your brain you need to eat more, right after you've consumed a bunch of calories. So when you put it all together, it's a pretty big deal. A chronic, high intake of fructose doesn't just mess with your liver. It's a major contributor to that whole cluster of problems we call metabolic syndrome. We're talking more of that dangerous belly fat, your body becoming resistant to insulin, and just a general state of low-grade inflammation simmering away all over your body. So that brings us full circle. Now that you've seen the whole pathway from that runaway enzyme to the energy crisis in the cell, think about it again. How do you see the fructose in an apple versus the fructose in a soda? Yeah, the molecule itself is identical, but the dose, the speed of delivery, and the final metabolic destination, they are worlds apart.